If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz, and I'm here today to review the 1989 Star Trek film, Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, starring the entire crew, as usual, directed by William Shatner. So the one thing I am starting to find very interesting about the Star Trek movies is how diverse the tone, feel, and the style of movies that they make under this entire franchise. If we look at the past 4 films so far, we have a very artsy and contemplative film. We have a revenge fantasy. We also have a parody of sorts, or a comedy mostly. And then we have a straight-up action film. 5 is also another different type of film that I really was not expecting. So why don't we just get into how I feel about that? So let's get into it. Let's get into the review of Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, directed by William Shatner. Before that, let's get into the plot. A renegade Vulcan named Spock, played by Lawrence Luckinbill, has a startling secret and hijacks the USS Enterprise in order to find a mythical planet. I mean, I could go into much deeper detail, but really there's not a lot of depth to the movie at all when it comes to the plot, so I'll just leave it there. I mentioned in the beginning that all the Star Trek films seem to have a different type of feel or mood or a type of mood they're going for, and this one feels more like a cheesy 80s action comedy. And honestly, I had mixed results with it. There are some funny scenes to it. There is some passable action in this, but I gotta be honest, like, there are elements of the film that don't work, and it seems like the silliness that they had with the movie, I don't think really gelled very well with the entirety of the film itself. They're trying to straddle a line where it's an 80s action comedy, and it's also something else, and I think it just misses overall with that. The 80s action comedy stuff is not bad, but there are a lot of issues that I have with it. First off, the basic action when it comes to firefights is fine, but the hand-to-hand combat stuff I don't think very works. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that all the cast members look way too old. And I have a really hard time believing that Kirk can overpower anybody, let alone soldiers. So that's one problem. The other problem is the special effects. I know this was made in '89, so I can't expect the graphics to be that good. But there are so much obvious green screen scenes, and the way that they do some of the scenes with Spock's flotation boots just does not feel great at all in this movie. And this seems to be a constant thing as the series goes on, the film series, where it seems like the special effects get worse and worse and worse as the movies go. Because one, I thought had really good looking special effects, and I think that was in '79, I think. But now we're at '89 with the 5th one, and it just seems like the special effects are just not good in this at all. But there's another part of the film too, is that it's also a spiritual film as well. That happens at the 3rd act of the film when they reach the mythical planet. Spoiler alert, but you know, that's part of the plot. And that leads to the ending, and the ending discovery is neither profound or interesting. And that's not good when you're trying to do a shift into the entire movie, and it just turns out that the movie discovery and the thing that they find is just not that compelling. It's not really that interesting at all. And it's also kind of confusing in certain circumstances too, because I still don't know exactly what it was that they dealt with. And on top of that, I'm not even sure exactly what Spock's power was. Did he mind control people, or was he just a very persuasive person? How was he able to control all these people and yet not control the 3 main guys, which were Spock, Bones, and Kirk? This just seems like the movie did not do a great job really solidifying what it is that made Spock special and what he did. Now, he has a very religious point of view where he believes that the Vulcans are meant to be more emotional than logical. But even then, there just seems to not be a lot of depth to it in that end. So did he gain these powers because he believed in the ancient Vulcan way? Or does he have some kind of special thing that other Vulcans don't have? You just don't know, because the film doesn't give enough depth as to what makes him so special and why he's able to do that. But I will say this, though. As much as I had problems with the film, there are some nice character moments in the film. And they're more the comedic side, and it really has more to do with, I think, the 3 main guys, I think, are really the more charming and have the best moments in the film. In that end, I think if you are a fan of Star Trek at all, I would say still watch it. You probably already have. What am I kidding? But for me, it really is not enough to garner a decent recommendation for the film. I think the film is sloppy in certain ways, and I think just doesn't work in others. And here are the footnotes for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and I've got one, and I think I mentioned it in the first point. I think they are getting too old for this. The beginning scene of the film is Kirk climbing the Capitan, I think it is. I might be wrong, but he's climbing a mountain in Yosemite Park, and it just does not look believable in the slightest. He's doing it with no ropes, he's doing it with no support system at all. And then once you see Spock and how he is, it's like, oh wow, that's not good. So, and then Bones looks a lot older as well. Every cast member looks older, and they don't seem to mention it at all. That's the other thing that I had a problem with. Like, you're not going to mention at all that these guys are getting a little too old for this. You're not at all. I think they're trying to balance a metaphor with the Enterprise, where the Enterprise is beat up, broken down, and not what it used to be. But not mentioning with the characters is kind of like, yeah, that doesn't exactly work. So I am surprised that they have a sixth one coming up, although it seems like this one is a little more liked. So yeah, we'll see what they do with that. So overall, I am not going to recommend Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. I want to say it first off the bat, I think he was given less and less of a budget, and the writing of the script was just too messy. I think the split between 2/3 action comedy and 1/3 spiritual journey, I don't think mixes very well. The ending doesn't work. I also think the action comedy is good in spots. I don't think it really gels well with the rest of the story and the rest of the Star Trek movies. I don't have a problem with the cast, really, except for I think they're just getting too old for what they're doing. But I hope in 6 that they make a justification as to why they're still doing it when they're this old. But I think it's a little odd that these guys are way too old for doing the stunts that they're doing. I find it less and less believable as time goes on. So overall, I am not going to recommend Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. You know where to check it out if you want to. I think it's still on Paramount Plus, so check it out if you are interested. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple of days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.